Good evening, and welcome to From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Today's guest is Mr. George Hemmingsen IV.
Good
Let's
evening.
welcome George. How are you, sir? How's
Good,
everything going?
good evening, said. Good. Good to see you.
Good, good. Hey, George, challenges of college recruiting.
Right
Tell
off
me
the top,
briefly about that, man.
I think right off the top of the head, the NIL landscape and how that's changing at all levels of college sports right now.
All right. And then our second topic on the show: how important is friend raising and fundraising to the success of athletics?
I think it's two key, huge elements just from my time in college sports and where I'm at now. That building relationships and making them feel like as you're a friend and building, get to know them on and off the court. I would say goes into the fundraising, and that's where you start developing those donors at uh, a really great culture in your community.
Sure, sure. These topics and more on From the AD's View. Let's get it. Welcome back to the show. Before we get started with our guest, Mr. Hemmingsen, I'd like to give honor to God, who's the head of my life, because without him, none of the things that I do would be possible. And now let's get back to Mr. George Hemmingsen IV, good friend, colleague for close to 20 years, former assistant men's basketball coach. He was at U Indy, where they did some really good things there. He was at Waldorf University, a former marketing development manager, current vice president of sports standards at AllAthlete. George, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Sid. I appreciate you having me. It's always great to see you. It's been a long time, and I love that we get to reconnect and stay in this space together.
It is, and it's always good, George, to have those relationships and that brotherhood. I mean,
Yeah.
because we have literally been around each other for 20 years, man.
Yes, it's wild. It's a wild stuff thing. And I think that's the blessing in just about this profession is that whoever you come in and you coach with, you meet their people, and then you instantly you come great friends with people, and that just propels you into you know new relationships that continue on for your lifetime.
And I remember, you're a grinder, man. You used to, hit the circuit, the JUCO circuit in Region 24, and go down the John A. Logan in Carterville, Illinois, and then swing over to Robinson to Lincoln Trail, and then shoot on up to Lakeland College in Mattoon, Illinois, and I mean, it was a grind, man. You went. From doing that and to now the work that you do
Mm.
is paramount to what we're going to talk about on the show today. So being who you were, George, and as an assistant men's basketball coach and being in college athletics, and leading young men and getting those families to entrust that you were going to take care of their student athlete. What are some of the challenges of college recruiting today, George?
And that's an everyday changing, in college recruiting. As you're talking about Region 24, being out there on the road grinding, it's going out there building trust. There's so many layers that are into the recruiting process these days. And then I think you said the key thing, how do you build that trust with them? And I think now, as we all know, you just see that NIL aspect of where things are right now. And, talking to friends of ours that we have in the business, in that the first question that are coming out of kids and parents' mouth is like, what are you offering me? What am I getting XYZ? And if that's not to their standards, they're leaving. And then they're plucking down from, high majors are going to, mid majors are pulling those kids up. Mid majors are pulling from D2s. It's a train effect on what the landscape is on that. So it's hard, I think, right now for coaches to keep those kids, even though you instill build that trust. And once they have, how do you keep that trust with your top players that they have a good year, and there's people behind backdooring trying to bring that player to the next level. So I think those are some key elements on that. And I just think the biggest thing that we can do and a coach can do, as is if you instill that trust off the court with that family,
Absolutely.
because you get to know everybody outside that players. Because if you
Absolutely.
don't know that, then that's where I think a lot of the things, people talking on that on the side here will come in. So building the trust, knowing that player besides them being a basketball player, what are their likes? What are their family likes? Because if that kid's
Absolutely.
coming to California to Kentucky wasn't Owensboro, that's halfway. We're their life source. So we got to
Absolutely.
know them inside and out. So those are some things right now. So I just think, just how do you continue to build that trust? And you got to have a great staff around you, around
Yes.
that head coach to keep
Yes.
that team together.
Yes. And you were that uh that support. You were
Mm,
that right hand to Coach Stan Gerard,
yeah.
my little brother, from another mother, and here's the thing though, George. I want you to take off your business hat, right? And the things that you do now. And I want you to put your coaching hat back on, that recruiter grinder that you were. If you had your choice now, George, would you recruit high school? Would you recruit JUCO, or would you recruit portal?
Uh, I would say, and here's the honest answer, I think I would still go all three. I think the limit, it's a win now situation at all levels, but I
Sure.
still think you need to take that one or two high school kids,
Yep.
bring them in. Those are culture builders.
Yep.
Develop them. But the success that I had at the coaching level was at the junior college level because guys maybe went somewhere, came back.
Right.
They got to grow up. So, but then their mindset's already ready. They've been through the grind. They know what it's
Absolutely.
like, and that So, and then of course you got to take the portal. You still have to take in that aspect of things of taking the kids that fit your program. And I
Sure.
just think there's a lot of coaches out there that just take a kid. Yeah, he can play, but what else is behind? They don't see what's behind that. There might be some other things lagging right there. So I would take a little bit from all three, but I'd be, you know, more JUCO portal heavy because that's just where the culture I brought up in, and I
Right.
saw the success. But you still got to take some of those high school kids,
Right.
to develop in that area.
Right. And that's a very poignant uh, answer, George, because I don't think that one particular way is the right or the only way,
Hmm.
right? Because the um, the JUCO route, you have young men, young women that have played 30 basketball games, right?
Hmm.
60 basketball games or more by the time they come out of their second year, going into that fifth semester.
Hmm.
So having those young people play at that level prior to coming to that 4 year level is significant, right?
Hmm.
But also having the high school, the in-state high school student athlete come, it brings grandma, it brings grandpa, it
Yep.
brings aunts and uncles, and it brings the town that they were in, right? Because if you're from um, DuQuoin, Illinois, and you go to SIU Carbondale, your whole family's coming to watch you play, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
As a
Yep.
freshman. So that's the culture that you were talking about. That's the
Yep.
experience, right? What is the student athlete experience going to be, right? And then but you get the portal guys and gals that leave somewhere. Maybe they were at a one, but they transfer to a U Indy, and they are game changers, right? And you're fighting, region, fighting for that region. You know how it is, Division 2. You can't just play good in your conference; you got to play good in your region. So if you had to, bring a recruit in, tell us briefly. George, what are some of the steps that you go through as you bring that recruit on campus?
Yeah, and, first, like what we start, first we're going to do the culture with that kid. We're going to get to know him on and off the court. How he is in the classroom, how he's on the floor, and and get to know their coach. Like getting a relationship with you. No, you got to know your players better than anyone that I've ever been around, and I'm saying that with the most greatest respect because you got to know them and what XYZ, where they came from, who was in their life. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be the first step, and then we're going to start funneling them in, and then bring them in and bring them in front of the head coach. Make sure it checks off the boxes, like for Stan, the 3, 4 things he wanted in a player. If that checks it off, then you introduce him to Stan, and then we start introducing that relationship. Because I've already built the trust with that player. Now it's time to build the trust with that player and the head coach,
Mm-hmm.
and then we get them to campus. And I thought you said a great thing there. The community is a huge thing, and I think a lot of people forget that with those high school kids coming in, you know, there's a lot of alumni around. There's people that stay involved in that, and that's the community aspect. So that's a big thing when we bring a transfer in to make sure that they fit the community. It was something that they felt warm and welcome in, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
you bring in your former players back, or you're bringing alumni in to meet that player to start building those relationships. Because when they walk around the mall or go to dinner, they start getting recognized like that, and that's a fun thing to feel. So there's a lot of aspects of that, but I think the community aspect is one of the final pieces that we really were successful at UIndy with Stand. Is that was our culture. We had the community embrace us, and then if they fit all those criteria, that it was a good fit for them.
Yeah,
And as you know, not all, sometimes it doesn't work, but we want to make
sure.
sure that their time at UIndy or wherever I was, Kentucky Wesleyan, Minnesota, that they are still leaving our program with good qualities and putting them in a successful situation to be great on and off the court.
Absolutely. And they play good quality basketball
Mm,
because, UIndy was a force to be reckoned with when you and Stan were at the helm there. And I just believe that the things that we do as coaches, right, and those relationships that we build with those student athletes are the a pillar, that foundation that makes them finally become the young men and young women
mm,
that they are, right? Because how many phone calls have you received, yours, that say, "Hey, coach, I'm getting married. Hey, coach, I just had my first child.
mm.
Hey, coach, this milestone in my life," right? So we talk about the wins and the losses on the court, but how many wins have we racked up off the court, George?
Man, those are the best wins. That's why we got into this business. We love the game, but getting those calls, hey coach, let's go grab some dinner. I want to catch up. And hearing the successes of where they're at, but also at the same time, I've gotten a lot of calls where they're going through some stuff at sometimes.
Right,
They're, hey coach, I
right.
need some. Can you give me some life advice? Being a new dad, things like that. Where it's fun, it's warming. That's why we got into this business.
Right.
To help people succeed, bring more people to the table, because that's where our wins come from. Seeing our players,
Exactly.
former players, with everything like that, and then I think that's where culture and program where we did a good job is when you treat players right, that they recruit for you. If one of their
Absolutely.
players, hey, come play over here, or their former alumni, hey, can you make a call to this athlete like Jordan Lloyd? That's now won an NBA
Yes.
championship. One of those.
Yep.
He's one of the main components where they still use him to this day to help lure recruits in, and that's because he
Yes.
had such a great experience and a great family experience with everything.
And you say that, and um coaches shouldn't take that lightly. The experience that
Mm,
the student athletes have is paramount, right? It's
yes.
it's the main thing. As an athletic administrator, I talk a lot about student success. Our leadership team, my boss, talks about student success and the overall experience that the student athlete has. Um, George, we have a lot more to talk about. So stay with me, right? I have to take a brief break. And then when we come back, we'll pick up some other things to talk about. You are watching From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. We'll be right back after this break.
Water. It's everywhere. We drink it, we bathe with it, we cook with it. Coffee's made with water. Toilets won't flush without it. It's used for washing clothes, dishes, utensils, pots, pans, floors, and our teeth. Plants and crops need water, animals drink it, and fish need it too. And don't forget, we can have a lot of fun in the water. Water. What will we do without it?
From the creative team that brought you The Browning Project and Dead by Morning comes a new thriller that will change the way you look at white-collar crime forever. Falling from the Sky.
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
Welcome back. You're watching From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Before we get back to our guest, I want to talk a little bit about my book here, How Black Men Overcome Racial Barriers and the Status Quo. It's in the NCAA institutions. It's a narrative inquiry. You can get this book on Amazon.com. And one of the reasons why the book was written was to give a better understanding of how men of color achieve leadership roles in Power Five institutions. It's a great read, a lot of information from former and current Power Five athletics directors that are men of color that were my role models. And the three things that came out of the research that was done was the benefit of role models, the expectation that the role model had of the mentee, and then the perceived racial barriers that were prevalent. Some of them perceived, some of them real, but in totality, it was about how the influence of role models help to propel young men into the leadership role and finally to get what we call into the chair, right? So if you'd like to look at the book and purchase the book, please do go on Amazon.com. And again, the book is How Black Men Overcome Racial Barriers and the Status Quo in NCAA Institutions. It's a narrative inquiry. If you'd like to see past episodes of From the 80s View, please go on my website, cedricmbrown.org. If you'd like to learn more about some of the professional services that I provide, also go on cedricmbrown.org. And then finally, if you are someone who would like to be a guest on the show, always looking for different perspectives, different views for the show, please go on my website, cedricmbrown.org, and email me, and then I will get right back with you. The show is on every Sunday evening at 6:40 Central, 7:40 Eastern, and you can always watch more episodes like the one here with special guests like I have, Mr. George Hemmingsen. Let's bring George back, please. George, man, you and I have been through some trenches, and you've recruited some of our student athletes, Anthony White Jr., Jamal Williams, I know Husey Hambright from Indianapolis,
Mhm.
Will McClure from Indianapolis, right? All those, Stevie Hedrick from Indianapolis, all those young men came to my program. And one thing that I can say about you and Coach Dan Gerard, who's now at Southern Indiana, you all always came for your in-state
Mhm.
student athletes, right? Always came. And here's the thing: you were one of the top Division II programs in the country, but you weren't afraid to recruit D1 type athletes, right? Because if you can get a steal, then you had an opportunity to be really good. And you had, I can't remember his name, you had a guard that was it David, that was really, really good and went and played overseas.
David
Uh,
Logan.
yeah,
Yeah.
buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness gracious. That young man could put the ball in the basket.
Oh, he's
He could
special.
put the special. So, George, as I segue to our second topic, you are now someone that helps colleges identify student athletes. But more than that, you are someone, and your organization is someone that helps student athletes and students alike to have opportunities to have school paid for. So, our next topic is this: how important is friend raising and fundraising to the success of student athletes? And then, also tell us a little bit about what you do at All Athlete.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is like on the fundraising side is like what we have, you and I right now. I think that's where you start building into your fundraising, and that's where the asks become easier to have donors get into your program, because as we both know in this world, there's a lot of people that want to donate and give back to universities or athletic programs, but some have never been asked, but they've only been asked just to give. And a lot of those donors or former alumni want to have a relationship with you and the staff, the players, things like that. And that's where the fundraising comes, because going out to dinner with them, and I keep saying that, building culture, building trust. And I think that's the biggest thing, building trust with those and that fundraising aspect. Then it relates back when that ask does that ask does come, and then they're more willing because they're invested into you, the program, in the community. And I think that's where sometimes that, where that there can be an improvement in that in any area, because all the programs I've been with, and especially at UIndy, and kudos to Sam, that was a big thing for us with
Hmm.
alumni and fundraising. Is like, how do we continue to build that culture and that trust with our former alumni and donors outside that program to bring them in and make them feel as they're one of us on staff and a part of the program.
And, the feelings that the community has as they accept another extended family member,
Hmm.
right, into their community, that is so key and so paramount to the success of the program, right? Especially now you have NIL collectives and things like that, right? Even though the collective is not a part of the athletics department or the school, right? It is an arm that can help the program to help the student athlete um, be successful, become more comfortable. I always talk when I recruited about a fit, right?
Hmm.
Does a student athlete, are they comfortable in their geographic location? Do they have the studies that they want to accomplish? Do they fit into that rotation for the program? So basketball, do they fit in the top 8, right? And then on the worst possible day, do they still want to be there, right?
Hmm.
Relationship with the significant other not going right. They come to the realization that they're a student athlete and they're broke, right? And but in the worst possible day, George, if they can answer those 4 questions, it's a fit, and the community, that friend raising fits right into that, right? So then the second half of that question is, George, how important is the fundraising for the success of athletics?
Oh, I mean, that's huge. It's every day, and I think it's you see your Power Fives. They're getting money. But like what a lot of people don't see is once you get down to that Division II low major, Division II NAI JUCO, that's where fundraise for the program. The better off we're giving those student athletes an opportunity to be successful. Is that more gear? Can we take trips? So that's where that fundraising aspect, because that's an everyday grind, and that's another side of the coaching at the lower levels that it has to be happen. Reaching out to again, former athletes, alumni, donors, people in the community that just love the sport, to get them involved, because that will help take the level to the next program. And I think that's one of our biggest successes at University of Indianapolis in UIndy, is that we did that in the community. That raised more money for us. That helped us get more things. That helped us give these little knickknacks for our players to help them, make them feel special and want to stay with us. Yeah.
And George, as you talk about that, the having the bells and the whistles, how important is that to the student athletes, right? They want to, if ABC University, who is at their level, is, if they have the little trinkets, or they, the gears is in, or they have the travel suit, and they have the grays, they have the running shoe and the game shoe, right? Those things are so important for them. Let me switch gears with you a little bit, George, and this is something that I ask all of the guests on the show. Um, Tell me how important faith or spiritualness is to you, George, and your family.
That's been huge. That's been an ongoing going thing where I'm growing each day with that, because as coaching, and I give a lot of credit. When I got my start was with Tubby Smith when I was back in Minnesota, and he let me be around the program and help me come up, and he really talked about how faith and the challenges within college coaching, where there's temptations, you're going to be pulled every which way, and that's been an ongoing thing. So that's really the foundation of where I'm at now, is because where I put my my faith at the forefront of the things I do with myself personally, and for my family. I have to be good faithfully for my family to be successful. And putting that ahead of everything daily leads down the paths that are supposed to happen that day. So as I've grown, and as I continue to get older, that is a focal point in my life, and I'm glad I went through the trials and tribulations, but have someone like Tubby, Stan, Todd, guys, teach you out on the way, because
absolutely,
that's where your mentors in, because it does pull you, and you start winning, boom, boom, boom. There's things that pulls you away from it, where your foundation is. And my dad's like, one time he's like, you got to get back to get back to your faith, and pull it back, and then everything took off again. So it's a battle every day.
It is,
but there's pathways. But at the end of the day, that if it was a bad day, that was supposed to happen, because there's positives that come out of that, and that in your faith is where it keeps you centered and whole.
There's a silver lining in every cloud, and I love your story, George. And our paths have always crossed, right? You started with Tubby, right? And at the end of my career, Tubby was a part of my career, my life, because Jamal Williams Jr. went and played for Tubby at Texas Tech.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, it is a very small fraternity. It's a very small brother and sisterhood coaching is. And I'm so glad and thankful that George Hemmingsen IV came across my path and is still in my life. You are a blessing to me each and every day, even, in the job that I currently have right now. We're working together, you, myself, JT Rogan are all working together on some things and stuff like that. So I'm so glad. George, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so you can go to allathlete.com is the where I'm at now. So quick on that is that's where we're educating kids on the recruiting process, and it's free. So we're trying to bring more people to the table, bring families to the table, and educate them on the process of being recruited at all levels. So you can check that out, and then at my email at ghemmingsen@allathlete.com. Shoot me an email. My cell phone's on there. You can I'll shoot you a text, I'll call you, we'll get in contact, and we just want to help. We want to help bring more to the table and give back. And as you said, JT Rogan, another good friend of mine we're intertwining now as friends. That's my business partner. That great guy that will help. We're just here to give and help, and don't want anything in return. We just want to give and give back.
Great men doing great things for the future. Of our society, our great student athletes, both males and females, doing a good job for them. And I'm glad that you got to talk a little bit about AllAthlete. And for those viewers that have student athletes that are coming up, take him up on it. Take George Hemmingsen up on that and get in contact with him. I think he said at Hemmingsen at allathlete.com, because it will help you understand questions, concerns, issues, and things like that. So, George, hey, man, brother, I appreciate you for being on the show with us today. Thank you so much, man.
No, thank you so much. This is always great, and I'm so proud of you and your success and where you're going. And yeah, thank you. This has been super wonderful to start, tonight.
I appreciate it. Well, you are watching From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. As I close the show, I do want to go back and remind all of you viewers, if you have young student athletes, please reach out to someone like George Hemmingsen and contact him so that you can get all the questions that you have answered. I'd like you also to go to my YouTube page and subscribe at Dr. Cedric M. Brown on my YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button and you can see more open and honest discussions from the AD's view. Good night and God bless.